The long-awaited Jurassic World is finally here. As a mercenary, Zora has received a mission. The pharmaceutical company simulates the discovery through a computer that there may be DNA for treating heart disease in the bodies of 3 extremely long-lived dinosaurs. But due to the current climate, it is no longer suitable for these prehistoric animals to survive. The remaining dinosaurs are forced to migrate to the islands near Guinea, and that area is no longer allowed for humans to set foot. But the pharmaceutical company has issued an irrefutable report that requires Zora to protect biological expert Dr. Henry and go to get the blood of the Tsung Long. Such a mission is impossible for only the 2 of them, so Zora found Duncan and Bob, who were also mercenaries. Everyone started this journey to find the dragon. As soon as the picture turned, the man took a family of 4 to sail on the sea. But suddenly, the boat seemed to have been hit by a big fish. Reuben was just about to check the damage to the boat, but in the next second, the 3 of them hurriedly climbed onto the boat, but Zora was trapped in the cabin. Finally, they opened the cabin door, and Duncan pushed him away again. Finally, Zora's figure appeared on the sea, but the giant beast behind him seemed to be staring at him. The next morning, Reuben, who was lying on the boat waiting for help, suddenly got up and then shot a signal bullet into the air. And the boat that passed by was exactly the one Zora was sitting on. But Martin didn't want to save him, because they were going to do something illegal. But with the persistence of Zora and Duncan, they still saved the family. The other party described the appearance of the monster. Henry found that the one who attacked them might be one of the goals of this trip. Zora hurriedly ordered to go in the direction of where the dragon had disappeared. Reuben noticed that he seemed to be on the thief's boat. But when the 2 of them were carrying ghosts, a huge shadow suddenly appeared on the radar, and it was coming toward everyone quickly. So we already found it? No, it's not us. Everyone hurried to the deck. The dragon also jumped out of the water at this moment. Zora came to the bow, but the wind was so strong that he couldn't aim at all, until Henry tied him up with a rope. Duncan pushed the throttle to the maximum, and then moved towards the direction of the dragon. Because Zora's blood-collecting gun had a range of only 10 meters, he could see that he was about to enter the range. The dragon suddenly dove into the bottom of the sea. Zora was so scared that he didn't dare to look at the dragon's back. But the dragon didn't dare to look at the dragon's back. The dragon was so scared that he didn't dare to look at the dragon's back. Henry hurried to get a new pin, but the next second, the dragon rushed straight towards the yacht. Zora adjusted his body's shape and then shot a pin. It was inevitably stuck on the back of the dragon. With the blood collected, the pin was shot into the air by the device on the tail. Henry hurried to the end of the ship and grabbed it. The victory made everyone excited, but soon they couldn't laugh. All they saw was a lot of yellow scum on the sea. It was a few dragons that surrounded the yacht. After several generations of evolution, the dragon and Zora formed a symbiotic relationship. They were responsible for eliminating the invaders in the territory. Bobby fired a gun at the other party, but the damage was insignificant. Zora! The sudden change left everyone in a daze. But just then, the dragon rose high from the water. The huge sea wolf almost overturned the small ship. Duncan had to choose to give up. He drowned the yacht and drove the yacht towards the shallow beach. There was chaos everywhere. Maybe he could stop the dragon. But just then, Vanessa turned on the radio. She wanted to send a distress signal, but Martin suddenly rushed in to stop her. They were pulling each other's shoulders, and the girl slipped. Please help me. Zoe was shocked. She picked up a life-saving board and jumped down without hesitation. The whole family had to follow the same principle. Reuben put on his daughter's life-saving clothes and then jumped into the sea. On the other side, the dragon kept crashing into the ship. The yacht soon started to smoke. Zola threw the packed supplies into the sea and then jumped down. There was chaos everywhere. The dragon had to give up chasing. Just when Duncan was excited, the yacht had already rushed to the shore. Fortunately, it was not dangerous. The mercenary team safely arrived at the island, but everyone dared not delay. After all, this island is the real crisis. The woman tried her best to pull the luggage, but the water-soaked package was still in the sand. Just then, the rock moved not far away. It turned out that the woman was disguised as a dragon. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. The mission had just begun, but it lost 2 grand prizes. This covered the hearts of everyone. What's worse, Martin found that the island they landed on was the experimental base for the genetic modification of dinosaurs. Although this place was abandoned due to scientific research, the terrible creatures that were created are still wandering on the island. But to be able to be rich and free for the rest of their lives, Zola still cut off the power line that had been out of power for a long time and went to find the whereabouts of the other 2 dinosaurs. Fortunately, Zola still had a hand. He hired a retreating team. As long as the wireless power is silent for more than 24 hours, they will drive a helicopter to an abandoned parking lot on the southwest mountain. But they will only stay there for 2 minutes. Without further ado, Zola took everyone and hurried to the deep forest. It was a crisis here. There were constant screams in the airs. Even in the water there was a huge pool. Half a day could be your last, and the Rubin family on the other side didn't get any better. They finally got ashore. But if they stayed there and waited to die, fortunately, Zola had also proposed a retreating plan to him. Rubin could only climb up the mountain with his family. After walking for a while, Zuil wanted to go to the corner for convenience. Unknowingly, animals are often very sensitive to the smell of urine. He only saw two fierce dinosaurs appearing behind him silently, but he didn't notice it at all. Fortunately, the wind god dragon happened to pass by. This saved his life. At the same time, Zola and the others came to the territory of Titan Dinosaur. But the strange thing is that it looks empty here. But there was a sound coming from the earth. Soon, there was an ancient beast on the empty grassland, and they were the Titan Dinosaur that everyone was looking for. Fortunately, they were herbivores. It's much easier to get blood. Zola put the needle in and then shot the Titan Dinosaur's neck. Soon, the second tube of blood was also successful. Looking at the wind god dragon hovering in the middle of the mountain, far away, that should be their nest. Everyone dared not delay. After all, there were fewer than 12 hours left. On the other hand, the Rubin family was walking hard on the winding mountain road, but they didn't pay attention. Zola slipped and rolled down the hill. The rest of them didn't notice the situation under their feet. The whole family rolled down. Fortunately, the terrain here was flat. Only Rubin twisted his ankle. At this time, the smell of a piece of flesh floated from a distance. Vanessa noticed that there seemed to be life-saving spells on the other side of the river, and they just needed to go down the river. To save energy, Vanessa decided to take the risk. She came across the river and came to the shore. She saw a dinosaur corpse lying not far away. They couldn't provoke such a large dinosaur. Suddenly, a heavy breath was heard from behind. Unexpectedly, everyone entered the territory of the Tyrannosaurus. Fortunately, the smell of the corpse covered the smell of Vanessa. She hurriedly ran into the camp where the life-saving spells were stored. After a search, she finally found a life-saving spell in the corner. Vanessa tried her best to get it out, but she was short-sighted. She was ready to open the life-saving spell in front of the Tyrannosaurus. Fortunately, the Tyrannosaurus was a little deaf. She didn't notice the several insects around her. Vanessa hurriedly slid the life-saving spell to the shore. But before everyone was ready to leave, the cute Tyrannosaurus noticed the situation here. Entering the new territory is equivalent to provoking yourself. The Tyrannosaurus hurriedly chased after it. It was thought that as the water level increased, the opponent would choose to give up. Unexpectedly, the Tyrannosaurus took a swimming lesson and dived directly into the water. Then it turned over the life-saving spell. But it was not enough to vent its anger. It only took a few steps to the shore, and then it stayed in the position downstream and waited for Lu Ben to send it into the mouth. Fortunately, it was not dangerous, but when everyone came back to life, they heard a cry for help. It turned out that the little girl was hiding under the life-saving spell. The Tyrannosaurus was already suffocating. The Tyrannosaurus had to leave here unwillingly. The more fortunate thing is that it had been hit so many times, but the national life-saving spell was still not activated. At the same time, the left wing on the other side also came to the bottom of the mountain. The Tyrannosaurus put the nest in an abandoned ancient temple on the half-mountain. Everyone tied the rope and prepared to speed down. This is a very difficult task, but Henry was not so easy. Fortunately, it was not dangerous. The two came to the entrance of the temple. This time, they did not need the blood of the Tyrannosaurus, but to collect the egg white in it. Just when the parents were not there, Henry carefully stabbed the needle into the shell. Soon enough, he collected enough samples. But just before the two were ready to leave, the Tyrannosaurus also returned to Chaoshua. Facing these two impetuous guests, he opened his mouth and attacked. Henry accidentally slipped and dropped the sample on the ground. At a critical moment, the strong man outside the cave threw out the mountaineering draft, and instantly attracted the attention of the Tyrannosaurus. The two at the top of the mountain hurried to pull him up. Henry took the opportunity to pick up the sample on the ground, but at this time, the rope that had fallen on the ground caught him. On the other side, the Tyrannosaurus was chasing behind the strong man. The two at the top of the mountain desperately retrieved the rope, but in the next second, the Tyrannosaurus attacked the strong man. After eating the strong man, the Tyrannosaurus turned around and attacked Duncan and Martin. At a critical moment, the two just found a hidden passage in the grass, and Henry, on the top of the mountain, also tried a few more times and finally got the sample. But the rope had already fallen under the friction of the stone block. Fortunately, the branches and the pool of water relieved the impact. Henry was saved, and the secret passage Duncan and Martin found also led them from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain. Although the loss was heavy, fortunately, there was only one step left to complete the task. Soon, everyone rushed to the evacuation point. This is the location of the abandoned research institute, and the Rubin family arrived here in advance due to the old way of life. Vanessa angrily found Martin and asked him why he was going to die, but Martin took out his pistol and then put the thermos on his wrist. At this time, the surrounding lights suddenly lit up, and the noise of music was heard. Although this place has long been abandoned, the power system has been working all the time. In the next second, a dragon fell from the sky and scared everyone into running away. The Rubin family hid in the supermarket. They blocked the door tightly, but the dragon dug in from the ceiling. Everyone didn't dare to make a sound, but it was only a matter of time before the dragon found it. Suddenly, Rubin found the sewer on the ground. On the other side, Duncan and Henry accidentally escaped into the abandoned lab. In addition to some failed mutants, Duncan found on the map that as long as he followed the tunnel system of this island, he could find a life-saving body. At the same time, the rescue helicopter also arrived here. Duncan hurriedly climbed to the top and tried his best to attract the attention of the other party. But the owner of this island had already appeared. On the other side, Zora hid at the bottom of the car. Martin noticed that the car door was locked, so he chose to betray his teammate without hesitation. Fortunately, Zora took the opportunity to hide in the forest, but the dragon seemed to smell the scent of a living person. He only saw his face and body. Then he dug into the sewer. Zora followed him closely. On the other side, Henry pulled out a signal bullet and finally made the pilot notice their existence. When he was glad that he was about to escape from the sky, Zora was about to die. The giant creature that looks like a heart in front of him is the dragon of the king of the chicken, which integrates many kinds of biological genes, and he is the real master of this island. Everyone hid in the sewer. The only hope is the lifeboat at the end of the tunnel. At that time, Zora also arrived here. Everyone ran to the end of the tunnel, but was stopped by an iron fence and blocked the way. Fortunately, the little girl was small. She went straight through the gap. She came to the operating table on the opposite side and was about to open the iron gate. But in the next second, Ji Wanlong had already appeared behind her. In a critical moment, the girl pushed the control board up. This made everyone exposed in front of Ji Wanlong. At this moment, the sound of the engine's horn suddenly sounded in the ear. It turned out that Ma Ding, who had abandoned his teammates, had also come here. Zola picked up the sample box that had fallen on the ground and then came to the dock. But everyone didn't know how to operate it. Instead, he made a huge alarm sound and attracted Ji Wanlong. Seeing that the monster was getting closer and closer to the little girl, Duncan opened the signal cigarette in his hand. He was going to sacrifice himself to lure Ji Wanlong away and buy time for everyone. Soon, Ji Wanlong was attracted by the fire. He followed Duncan to the river on the other side. On the other side, Zola finally put down the lifeboat. Everyone rushed to board the ship, but he looked in the direction of Duncan's departure. With the extinguishing of the fire, he still had to accept the reality and return to the lifeboat. But at this moment, Ji Wanlong, who was lured away from the mountain, turned back again. Ji Wanlong finally gave up chasing the chicken. Zola shouted Duncan's name loudly and hoped for a miracle to happen. Suddenly, a signal bullet slipped through the sky. I didn't expect Duncan's 8 characters to be so hard. At the end of the story, the survivors drove the lifeboat and finally left this dangerous island.